Hey there, it's Elias, and I've got an update for you about the new Multiview for NDI. I've added a couple of new features to it, and I can't wait to share it with you, so let's dive right in. Before I get started, though, if you're ever curious about what's been added to the latest version of the Multiview for NDI, head over to our website, multiviewforndi.com, go to Docs, and check out the release notes. In that section, I will detail everything that is new, everything that has changed in the new Multiview. So this video is being recorded on the 3rd of November, 2023, which is the release date of the latest version. Some of the features that are new, we've added some controls for controlling PTZ sources via the HTTP API. So you can now recall presets, save presets, do pan, tilt, zoom, all from within the HTTP API. So before, you could only do that by doing keyboard control on the app itself. Now you can do it through the HTTP API. And I'll show you how to do that in just a moment. We've also added audio monitoring, so there are VU meters available. You can see the audio levels. And we've added some debugging information to see for a specific source, how is its performance? Are we dropping frames? Do we have a backlog of frames? So that should help in some niche cases where you're trying to debug NDI. In this video, what I'm going to show you is what is new in the HTTP API, along with how to use the Multiview with Companion. So if you've got something like a Stream Deck, or if you're a big Companion fan like I am, you can now use it with the Multiview for NDI. In the future, we'd like to make a plugin for Companion. Haven't quite got to that yet, but with the HTTP requesting API that is in Companion, you can use the Multiview with Companion. So let's jump right in. Let me show you the setup here. I have three sources set up. One is my main NDI camera. The other is a camera looking at it. And then I've got a test pattern. And as you can see here in the test pattern, I have these audio meters at the side of each source. So I can now see how much audio is coming through on each source. So camera B, I've got just a line input on that source. I'm just playing a test tone in the background. I'm going to stop that, and that metering goes away. All right, let's dive into the meat potatoes, controlling PTZ. So before, you can control PTZ either by opening up the main Multiview window, clicking on the source that you want to control, and using your keyboard. Left, right, up, down does your traditional PTZ. Minus and plus does your zoom in and out. But you had to be using the Multiview window itself to do this. What has been added to the HTTP API is the ability to control your PTZ sources using the HTTP API. So you can say get source, whatever the source name is. You can load preset, save presets, pan, tilt, zoom in different directions. We have a panic button here for stopping all PTZ. So if something gets away from you, you can just hit this route and stop all PTZ motion. If your device supports it, you can set focus, either autofocus or focusing in and out via speed. You can set white balance, you can set exposure settings, and like I mentioned, the NDI Performance route. So let's jump in and set up Companion. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to come into Companion here. I've already got a couple routes, a couple buttons set up. What I'm going to do first is I will show you loading and saving presets. So the way that we load and save presets is you'll do a GET request to the HTTP API. So you'll do a GET request to localhost 8901 or whatever machine your Multiview instance is running on. So you could substitute that IP address here, /source, and then it will be whatever the source name is. So for example, my source name is camera B, NDI HX2 192.168.148 /load preset, and then I've set up a variable called custom preset bank. I set this to 0. And I've got two buttons here to allow me to cycle through my presets. So if I come over to my emulator here, I can hit these buttons and change the preset bank I want to save and load. So what I'll do now is I'm going to adjust my camera. What I'll do is I'll bring up the Multiview and Companion side by side so you can see how this works. All right, so I have Companion and my Multiview side by side. So I'm going to do a pan left here just a little bit, pan left, and do a little bit of a tilt up. And I'm going to save this as preset 1. I'll say save bank 1. And then I'll do a little bit of adjustment to the right. I'll adjust this down. Maybe I'll do a little bit of a zoom out. There we go. Actually, I'll do a zoom in, zoom right into that camera lens. And this time I'm going to save preset bank 0. So now with Companion, I can toggle between these two presets. And again, this is going through the HTTP API of the Multiview itself. We're not using any Visca commands over HTTP or anything like that. We are just using HTTP commands direct to the Multiviewer. So that's how we set this up. All we need to do is use the API as it's described. So in this case, I'm doing localhost 8901/source/ the source name / load preset or save preset, and then using that custom variable that I created to select my preset bank that I want to save and load. Doing tilt up, tilt down, pan left, and pan right is the exact same thing. Localhost 8901/source/ whatever the source name is. And then for panning, it's pan, and then you provide a value between -1.0 and +1.0. That is the speed at which you will pan left and pan right. What I've done is for my press action, I will have Companion execute the pan command, and then when I release the key, I will execute a pan command with the speed of 0. That will stop the pan. If you do not add this pan/0, the stop command, your device will likely keep panning left or right depending on the direction that you have selected. So that's something to keep in mind. Your press is where you specify here's how fast or how slow I want to do this, and then your release is where you say the speed is equal to 0. We also have control over the focus. So I've got my source set to autofocus right now. I can also manually adjust the focus by, say, I'm going to hit plus a whole bunch of times. Now, for adjusting the focus, if I come up here, for my focus, I'm setting a very slow adjustment of 0.1. That way I can just gently tap that button to adjust my focus. If you do -1 or +1 for adjusting the focus, that focus is going to adjust very fast. So I would suggest adjusting focus in small bursts like this. This is also a really good time as well, if you've got your Multiview controller up, to take your source out of proxy and do full resolution. That way you can get a better idea of whether you're focused on the object or the subject that you want focused in on or not. And then once you've got your source in focus, go back to proxy feed. You've got the low resolution feed. That way you're not consuming as much bandwidth and you're not consuming as much GPU and CPU time. All of the other commands work the same way. So if you want to do tilt up and tilt down, there's source, source name, tilt, and then the speed at which you want to tilt, followed up with a release action where you do tilt of 0. Like I mentioned, we have the panic button. I call it the panic button because every now and then, sometimes something might happen. You might have a network dropout. Who knows what happens? We all like panic buttons, right? So this panic button, what it will do, source/name/stop all PTZ, that will issue a stop command, a speed command of 0 for pan, for tilt, and zoom. So if for some reason your device is not responding, issue this panic command and it will stop. Another route you might want to check out is the NDI Performance. And what this will expose is the performance metrics that the NDI SDK gives us. What this tells us is how many frames has this receiver consumed, if we've dropped any frames, if we have any frames in the queue. So that is frames that have been received by NDI but have not yet been processed. If that queue starts to get above 0, then that means that your system is falling behind and it may not be able to keep up with demands. Number of connections says how many listeners are connected to this source. So if you've got Multiview, plus maybe you've got OBS or vMix, and then a preview monitor somewhere else that's connected to that source, those will all increment this source number. And then audio level, that will be whatever the dBFS of the audio coming out of that source is. Or if it's not receiving any audio, it'll be a very small negative number. Let me try to get the details for another route for another camera here. I'll try to get it for camera A. I believe that's on 149. So camera A, we're receiving quite a few frames here. 20,534 frames, one connection. We're not dropping frames. We don't have any frame queue. And we have very quiet audio because nothing is playing. Now, if I do have something going line in. So if I do play that, I'll go back to camera B here, and you'll notice that I'm at negative 25 dBFS. Again, if you're interested in seeing all of the changes, head over to multiview4ndi.com, check out the release notes, and also check out the HTTP API documentation. Everything that you can do with the Multiview, you can do with the HTTP API. The controller itself actually does not have control for the PTZ sources. Might add that in a future version. In fact, this Multiview controller is just a simple wrapper around the web API for the Multiview itself. And this controller app, I'm going to be open sourcing soon so that we have a reference implementation or an example implementation of a controller that you could build yourself for the Multiview. Anyway, that's all that's changed in the Multiview. Hope you find it useful. If you did, like and subscribe. You know the deal with these YouTube channels. And you can find the Multiview over at multiview4ndi.com. Thanks for watching, and I'll talk to you soon.